Holiness, I know that your heart is suffering a lot these days for the fate of the Church, for world peace, and for the many needs of its peoples. I offer you my prayer and daily suffering, a small but sincere thought of the last of your children, so that the Lord comforts you with His grace to continue on the right and tiring path in defense of the eternal truth that never changes with the times. I want the Lord to grant the triumph of the truth, peace to His Church, and serenity to the people of the earth. My marvelous Father, you cannot imagine the pleasure receiving your letter gave me, with which you ensured us of your good health.
Padre Pio is 14 years old when he writes this letter to his father, who is working overseas in America to ensure his family a decent standard of living. Here, at Pietrelcina, poverty was normal. Francesco Forgione, to call him by his proper name, was born on the 25th of May 1887. Conditions for the Forgione family are the same as those for many others here at Pietrelcina. His father and mother are simple people who already have a son, born before Francesco, have seen 2 children die, and later will have 3 daughters.
Thanks to the Lord, we too are well, and I, in my own special way, continue to pray to our beautiful Virgin so that she will protect you from every ill and return you to our affection safe and sound.
Even though his father has a little land, he is forced to emigrate to America, the dream for many Italians wanting to provide their dearest with a more tranquil future. At the age of 6, Francesco is already looking after a flock of sheep, but as he grows, so does his intention to study.
You have 1,000 reasons to complain to Mother about my going to Pompeii. However, you must remember that next year, God willing, all holidays and amusement will be over for me, because I will abandon this life to embrace a better one.
Francesco had a very clear idea when he wrote this to his father. His path and vocation are already clear to him. He has chosen to become a Capuchin friar. He has a great desire to mature, to study, and to pray, to dedicate his life to prayer.
It is true that I have squandered a few lire, but now I promise to earn them through study. In fact, now that I find myself under the guidance of a new teacher, I have realized that I must improve every day, and both Mum and I are very happy about that.
Padre Pio only decided to become a Capuchin friar because he liked Capuchin friars. In fact, in his biographies, we read that the appearance of Brother Camillo, a Capuchin lay brother, made a great impression on him, even when he came round begging for alms. The serious religious behavior of this brother made an impression on the mind of the young Padre Pio. He himself would often say that he became a Capuchin because the beard of Brother Camillo became impressed on his mind, and therefore he wanted to be a friar, like Brother Camillo, with the habit and beard of St. Francis.
And this is how the story of Padre Pio of Pietrelcina begins. The story of a man who starts off along a path that is tortuous, difficult, painful, but always inspired. It is the 6th of January 1903 when Francesco Forgione knocks on the door of this monastery. Opening the door to him is Brother Camillo, the begging Capuchin that he had often seen as a child at Pietrelcina. The brother is not surprised. In fact, he remembers a promise that has now been kept.
And where better can I serve you, O Lord, if not in the cloister and under the banner of our poor brother from Assisi? O God, make my heart go out evermore to the poor and complete the work that you have begun in me, so that Jesus gives me the grace to be a son less unworthy than St. Francis, who can be an example to my fellow brothers, such that the fervor continues to grow in me to make me a perfect Capuchin.
On the 22nd of January 1903, he dons the novice's habit of the Capuchin order, assuming the name of Brother Pio. Now study awaits him, and for this reason he must face moving to various monasteries throughout the province.
He was an example to imitate, an irreproachable novice, and therefore was first in everything. With this exemplary nature, with this attachment, with this love for the habit of St. Francis and our Franciscan Capuchin life, he lived it to the full, until 80 years of age. He never wanted to relinquish the Capuchin habit to which he felt so attached.
By God's will, I continue to always feel ill at health. But that which torments me are the acute chest pains. At certain moments they are so bad that it seems as though my back and chest are going to break.
Padre Pio is very ill. he has to go home to his Pietrelcina, where he was born and grew up. There follows some years of suffering with tremendous physical and mental pain. Medicine does not help. The only true relief is provided by Jesus Christ.
When Padre Pio was a priest at Pietrelcina, since my mother was the same age as he, when Padre Pio did his penance, what we call the discipline, on Friday, my mother would spy on him through the window. After a while, he realized it, and then closed the window of that room, the bedroom where the demons, as he called them in his letters, once tortured him for 7 hours and nearly beat the life out of him.
My father, were it not for the war that the devil is waging within me, I would almost be in heaven. I find myself in the hands of the devil, who is trying to rip me from the arms of Jesus. My God, the war he is waging. But it doesn't matter. I will never tire of praying to Jesus.
He is ordained as a priest on the 10th of August 1910 in Benevento Cathedral. His stay at Pietrelcina continues. Together with the physical pain, the tormenting temptations, and the visions. These are years of great suffering and prayer. Then happens an event that shakes and to a certain extent characterizes his whole life.
Yesterday evening, something happened to me that I neither know how to explain nor understand. In the middle of my palms, some red marks appeared, about the size of a centesimo, accompanied by an acute pain in the middle of the red marks. This pain was worse in the middle of the left hand, so much so that it still hurts. It also hurts a bit on the soles of my feet. This phenomenon has now been recurring for almost a year, but it hasn't happened again for some time. Don't get angry if I talk about it for the first time now, because I have always been ashamed of it. If you only knew how much it has taken out of me to tell you.
For the time being, the significance of these marks is still not clear. A few more years must pass before the unmistakable stigmata.
I was still in bed on Friday morning when Jesus appeared. He showed me an enormous multitude of priests. The face of Jesus in distress filled me with pain, because I wanted to ask him why he was suffering so much. I have no answer. He moved away from the crowd of priests with a tremendous expression of disgust on his face, shouting, "Butchers!" And he turned to me and said, "My son, do not believe that my agony lasted 3 hours. No. For the sake of the souls blessed by me, I will be in agony until the end of the world."
During this highly tormented period, there is no lack of certainty and security to count on. Mary is the great hope of Padre Pio, a point of reference on which he can depend, always.
It was the 2nd of December, and as soon as he saw me, Padre Pio sent me away. Go, leave immediately for Pietrelcina. But Father, I wanted to stay by you a while. But he replied, do you know what day it is tomorrow? It is the day of Our Lady. If only I could come with you. How I long for Pietrelcina.
How many times have I confided to this mother the heavy burden of my tormented heart? And how often has she comforted me? But what has been my gratitude? In my greatest afflictions, I seem to have an earthly mother no more, but instead one full of pity in the heavens. Poor mother, I know how much you love me.
The First World War breaks out. Padre Pio is very disturbed. He knows that there is a risk of his own personal involvement, but above all, he has a clear idea of the suffering that the world must suffer. A further occasion to intensify his prayer.
In the hours of sadness, raise your hearts high to God. From him will come calm and comfort in all its force. We pray with fervor, humility, and perseverance. The Lord is a father, and among fathers the most tender and kind. He cannot avoid being moved when faced by his children when they turn to him. We know how to live the war this solemn hour. It must never defeat us.
Padre Pio's future lies at San Giovanni Rotondo, a place that seems immediately familiar to him. But before permanently settling in this tiny village in the heart of the Gargano, he must still suffer examinations at the Naples Military Hospital that for him are extremely humiliating.
I would be extremely sorry to leave this world in a barracks and not a cloister in these damned rags. Just thinking about it makes me shudder and throws me into mortal sadness. Tell me, Father, will Jesus free me from the army? Will I die in a cloister or under the army?
Having passed the risk of a direct involvement in the war, and after a brief period spent at Foggia, Padre Pio finally arrives at what will be his house for the rest of his life, the San Giovanni Rotondo Monastery. From this moment on, Padre Pio commits himself to intense spiritual work. His is a style that unites tradition and simplicity.
Glory to Jesus and to his goodness, that knows how to unite even the mountains in a holy bond in front of him. Jesus, who shoulders the lost sheep that he has found with great difficulty. The Lord made me find in you a lost sheep that had wandered from its way. He made me hear his voice loud and clear, so that I would take this dear sheep and look after it, so that one day I could introduce it to the eternal feast.
He is the friar who offers a hand to people looking for an answer and reflecting on their path through life. He is the friar who offers encouragement and faith.
Have no fear. The Lord will not abandon you. You fear that you will lose yourself and that you've already lost God. And so you ask me where He is. He is in you, and you are in Him. You are like a traveler who, locked in his cabin, neither sees the ship nor feels its rocking. He is alone with his fears, fearing to drown in the sea's abyss. But in truth, even though he doesn't see it, he is on the ship, and even though he thinks he is still, he is actually moving, covering many miles an hour.
Padre Pio lives his role as a spiritual director with great intensity. He points out all the delicacies involved with leading the spiritual path of an ever-increasing number of people. Work that involves sacrifice and that must be nourished by constant prayer.
Oh, my girl, bitter is the thought of having to face God because of the sins one has made other people commit by giving them wrong advice. Oh, my girl, pray. Pray a lot for this together with the other souls, all of us united in one spirit in front of the Lord.
At San Giovanni Rotondo, the rumour among the people is prompting an increase in the number of people wanting to meet the brother from Pietrelcina. Notwithstanding his health problems, Padre Pio throws himself into his work totally.
You have pitied me, even though I have let too much time pass before writing to you. I am so weighed down with work and illness that I don't know where my priorities lie. As you can see, Father, I really lack time. I spend most of the morning hearing confession, but let's bless the Lord, who helps me with His grace.
For Padre Pio, 1918 is a particularly important year. On the 21st of August, he writes to Father Benedict, his spiritual director.
On the night of the 5th, I was hearing the confessions of our boys when, all of a sudden, I was frightened to death by the sight of a celestial figure facing me. He was holding a sort of tool, similar to a very long iron blade with a sharp point, out of which fire seemed to come. In the blink of an eye, I saw this figure and then witnessed him violently throwing the tool at my soul. I cried out weakly. I thought I was dying. I told the boy to go because I was feeling bad and didn't have the strength to carry on.
A month passes. It is the 20th of September. Padre Pio goes through the experience that will mark him for the rest of his life.
It was the morning of the 20th last month in chorus, after the celebration of Holy Mass, when I was overcome by a sense of tranquility, almost like a sweet sleep. All my internal and external senses, as well as the state of my soul, found themselves in a state of indescribable peace. During all of this, there was a total silence within me and around me. There was suddenly a sense of great peace and abandonment of all that surrounded me. All this happened in a flash. And while all this was happening, I saw a mysterious person in front of me, similar to that which I saw on the evening of the 5th of August, the only difference being that he had hands, feet, and chest dripping blood. His face drew me closer. That is, at that moment I felt something within me that I would not be able to describe. I felt myself die, and would be dead had the Lord not intervened to support my heart that I felt bounce in my chest. The image of the person faded away, and I noticed that my hands, feet, and chest were pierced and dripping blood. Imagine the pain I felt then and am still feeling nearly every day. The wound to the heart bleeds a lot, especially from Thursday evening until Saturday. My father, I'm dying from both the pain and the confusion I feel deep within my soul. I fear that I will bleed to death unless God answers the cries of my heart and changes this situation. Will the good Jesus allow me this grace?
Within a short time, the appearance of the stigmata arouses people's attention. Many are arriving, hoping to see and meet Padre Pio.
I was received in his little cell, and I got down on my knees, as I was advised to do by my friend. And Padre Pio was very rushed and hasty. And to tell the truth, he regarded me as just a piece of the scenery. The sentence that I remember is when asked by my friend, "This young fellow wants to know," of course they were speaking in the Foggiano dialect because that's how you spoke to Padre Pio, if he should be a lawyer or an artist. Padre Pio replied, "Facesse che vuole. Let him do what he likes." I wasn't sure what he meant, and I'm still not sure even now. To me, do what he likes could mean that he didn't care what I did. Do what he likes, or do what he wants, to be an artist, which I did.
I feel well, but I am very busy day and night with the hundreds and thousands of confessions that I hear every day. I haven't got a single moment's peace, but let's bless God who helps me in my work.
I believe that it is right that Padre Pio is made a saint, because what a lot of people I know have said supports my opinion. And I believe there is a real need for spirituality. One reason being the teachings of the Church managed to withstand all the advances of technology and progress. And this in itself is a miracle that, in my opinion, this beatification will help to refresh.
All my time is spent freeing my brothers from Satan's bonds. Blessed is God. There are some splendid conversions. Ask the provincial father to send many workers to the vineyards of our Lord. In fact, it is cruel to send hundreds and sometimes even thousands of souls away every day when they have come from afar away to have their sins removed and have been unable to confess for want of a priest.
Padre Pio spends ever more time in the confessional. His method of meeting people in the sacrament of reconciliation is highly particular, and the faithful welcome it.
It is now 1 a.m. and I'm writing these few lines. I've been working non-stop for 19 hours. Never mind.
Padre Pio's confessional manner is always consistently faithful to the gospel, both when he is particularly brusque with people who are superficial or approach him out of curiosity, and when he is extremely affable with those who are sincere and certain about their path towards conviction. His is a true soul clinic to heal and give the strength to begin again. But on the horizon, threatening clouds are gathering in the brother of Gargano's path through life. A long and painful period begins that is full of problems. Too much is being said about Padre Pio. His home is subject to checks, investigations, medical and apostolic examination. In short, a torment that limits his public work more and more. Rumours concerning his transferal become more insistent.
Reverend Father, I believe that I don't have to tell you that I am willing to obey any order from my superiors. For me, their voice is that of God.
The feared transferal will not happen, but for a decade a series of restrictions are imposed that in different ways drastically limit his freedom to meet people, write, to hear confession and publicly celebrate Mass.
God knows, together with everyone in our church, that I scold those who come to kiss my hand when I am hearing confession. But if that is not enough, is it my fault? I can't hit them, can I? Maybe I would have done it had my hands been healthy. Also, what can I do if the people you are talking about have put words in my mouth that I have never even dreamt of saying? I can only put them into the Lord's care and hope that everything will turn out fine.
Padre Pio accepts the orders of his superiors and retires to his cloister, taking with him the precious gift of prayer, his true and constant source of nourishment. From his cell, he prays, and prays for the whole of humanity. Like Francis of Assisi, he lives the wounds of Calvary daily. He obeys in silence and in communion with his fellow brothers. Never before has he felt so much a part of the family of the poor brother from Assisi. The cloister is a bit like his own little Assisi. The cell and the small chapel are his porzuncola. These places were very dear to him, as he remembers to one of his spiritual daughters.
I hope there will soon be a day when you will experience the heavenly joy of coming to Assisi, the Franciscan city, a talking reminder of the great love and endless charity of St. Francis. Yes, I hope that one day you will prostrate yourself there in that little temple dedicated to the holy Porziuncula, where over 7 centuries of devotion, the kisses of the penitents have smoothed the rough walls to marble or alabaster. The heart of the faithful pilgrim beats fast while he stops here to pray with ardor. Each brick could recall the story of thousands and thousands of souls who, by confiding and freeing themselves, have rested their heads among the pain of life.
Questa è la creatura che la provvidenza, aiutata da voi, ha creato, ve la presento. Ammiratela e beneditela insieme a me il Signore Dio.
A man who suffers physically and who prays cannot be unaware of the suffering of humanity. The prayer of Padre Pio is a charity that translates into an extraordinary monument for all those who live through the pain of illness, the house of relief for those in suffering. After 1,000 difficulties, his great dream comes true. And this is how he addresses the doctors on the day of the hospital's inauguration.
You have the mission of curing the sick. But if you do not take love to the beds of the sick, I believe that medicine is of little use. I have experience of this when my doctor, treating me, gave me a word of comfort above all else. Love can't work without words. How can you express this other than with words that raise the sick spiritually? Take God to the sick. It is worth more than any other cure.
This is a model hospital, above all for this heavy inheritance that imposes on its staff a willingness and commitment that provides the sick with true relief.
I always pray for the sick. The best comfort now is that which comes from prayer. Please tell me that I talk to God about them more than I talk to them directly. Every day, I'll say a rosary for all the sick.
Everything in Padre Pio is prayer, the motor of his daily life.
As soon as I start praying, I feel as though my heart were invaded by a flame of living love. And I feel as if my head were filled with such peace and calm that I cannot explain it in words.
Padre Pio is man-made prayer. He accepts Pope Pius XII's invitation with enthusiasm. Prayer groups are born that in a short time spread throughout the world. By 1968, there are 726, with a total of 68,000 members. Today, there are more than 2,000 groups.
One day I was among the pilgrims. As I'd often said, I wanted to go and see who this Padre Pio was. I arrived at his monastery at dawn one morning. The bells were ringing, and I went to the Mass. I was at the Mass that the Capuchin was celebrating. The coaches were unloading hordes of pilgrims, and there was a sense of tiredness and drowsiness, combined with the smell of human sweat, candles, and incense, a bit of everything. They said that when he appeared there was the scent of violets, but it didn't reach my nose, perhaps because I'm a sinner and was there with no intention of praying. I also had to have, in some way or another, something to tell about this journey and experience. He arrived, dragging his feet, because he was already very old, with those woolen gloves that cover the stigmata. And he said the Mass, and the people prayed. There was a strange atmosphere in a part of the world so alien, with these people going in search of grace, salvation, or hope, I don't know what. A friar with a strong character, who could sometimes seem arrogant, who believed in God with a humble simplicity, who had spent his whole life in the tiny world of a monastery in the south of Italy, who believed in prayer and the constant presence of God in everything human, and who gave encouragement to many desperate people and a bit of light to those living in darkness.
The culminating moment of prayer is in the Holy Mass. To better understand who Padre Pio is, one needs to participate in and experience in the first person the moment in which he celebrates the Eucharist at the altar.
With the Mass over, I stayed a bit longer to thank Jesus. My talk with God was so suave that morning, so much so that I couldn't express it even if I wanted to. Please let me say that Jesus' head and mine became one. It wasn't two hearts beating, just one.
When I was serving at Mass, Padre Pio would come down from the monastery, from the vestry. Before he put on that neckerchief, the amice, he was happy and cheerful. As soon as the amice was on, he was a man of pain, transformed, pale, emaciated, saying the words, "My God, my God."
a Mass that lasts 2 or even 3 hours. For many years, celebrated at 4 o'clock in the morning with the people that crowd to find a space in the church. One has the knowledge that something is happening at the altar that attracts the attention and meditation of everyone. For Padre Pio, the Holy Mass is the moment of daily life in which one relives the experience of the sacrifice and salvation materially visible in him.
I met Padre Pio maybe 3 times on various occasions. I don't remember, when I had to come to Foggia or the surrounding area for political reasons, for lectures on themes that were relevant to the Catholic world. Once I arrived in the evening to be ready for the lecture the day after, and I found people who said, "We've already organized everything. You go to the hotel now, but at 3:30 in the morning we'll call you." My first impression was, not very good, I must say. Why couldn't those people just worry about their own things? Why do they have to wake me up to go and see Padre Pio? This person that they say meets people and sees inside them. More than once, speaking about him to my public, I would say, I used to cover myself with my overcoat, almost as if this would protect me from prying eyes. After the very long and meditative Mass, celebrated by a friar, you would get to see him. I'm not a sentimental man and have difficulty expressing emotions, so I was just looking at the people and their deep concentration. Yet, what still exists in the world that comes from Padre Pio? A few months ago, I was in Australia, and there are prayer groups. Not people studying the stigmata and waiting for a miracle. They are prayer groups. Like the stigmata of Padre Pio left to humanity. These are a moving, I was about to say striking, testimony to the mark left by this friar in the name of Brother Francis, which is prayer. I think that these are the most beautiful signs of the message of Brother Francis. Over the centuries, the host of Franciscan saints who have followed him have continued to tell people that his message is always relevant, and in fact is so, even as I speak. It just means having the grace not to waste it, but to accept it.
Before being united with him in the communion, the heart feels attracted by an incredible strength. Before the communion, I nearly die of hunger and thirst.
That Sister Death should not find him unprepared is a recurrent theme in his letters.
I wish death only to unite me with indissoluble bonds to the heavenly husband. I truly desire life, to suffer evermore. O life, how long you are! Wherever I turn, I find thorns that penetrate me. Now I have but only one true friend: death.
In his cell, on the 21st of September 1968, Padre Pio tells his fellow brothers and doctor,
It's over. It's over.
The day after, he celebrates his final Mass in an atmosphere of festivity and participation. His prayer groups are all gathered at San Giovanni Rotondo.
I realized he wasn't well and told the Father Superior, "Padre Pio is ill, can we give him the holy oil?" "Yes, yes, run, run," he replied. I went to get the holy oil and said, "But who's going to give it to him?" "Not me, I've never done it," said the Father Superior, together with the other old friar. "I'll do it," I said. "Yes, yes, you do it, I know how to," I said. "I've done it many times at Foggia." And so, while the doctors stood around Padre Pio, doing whatever was necessary, giving him oxygen, etc., I administered the holy oil, the last rites to Padre Pio.
He dies in the armchair in his cell at 2:30 on the 23rd of September 1968. The painful wounds on his feet, hands and chest are no more. There is no trace of his 50-year martyrdom, the source of such suffering, love, and immeasurable faith.
I looked at my watch. It was 2:30. And Padre Pio was passing away. With no noise, without a sound, without any uproar, Padre Pio died in complete peace. See what fame he had, how many crowds he drew from all over the world. But why? Perhaps because he was a philosopher, because he was a sage, because he had the means at his disposal, because he said the Mass with humility, heard confessions from morning to evening, and because, how shall I say, he represented our Lord through the imprint of his stigmata.